Hi guys. This is the Unit 1 Living Environment. No, Living World AP review. I'm trying to open it up on Google Doc. Here we go. I'm just going to go through it, explain anything that I think you guys maybe had trouble with. But if you have any questions from Unit 1 or any of the other units, please, please, please don't refrain to reach out to me. Okay, so obviously from living environment, probably before that, you guys know what a predator and what the prey is. So I don't think I need to go into that. The more important thing is the trend. So obviously we have an undulating line. So as the number of prey increases, the predators increase, there's more food available, they're able to raise more offspring, they reproduce, they're happy, it's ideal. And then once they start to rise, then they eat more prey, the prey starts to go down, and then we have a cycle like that. So that explains that graph over there. If you take a look at the symbiosis, I think, again, this is very straightforward. If I were you, I would definitely go into this exam knowing one example for each one. Mutualism, both benefiting. The easiest one to think of is the clownfish and the sea anemone. The coral and the zooxanthellae, if you want to get a little more technical, I know some of you love marine science, so maybe that's more comfortable for you. The zooxanthellae is just that algae within the coral that supplies the coral with the oxygen and the nutrients, and then the coral polyps and the coral itself, the calcium carbonate structure, provides zooxanthellae with that protection. Commensalism, one's benefiting, one doesn't get hurt. So the one I always go for is the bird in the tree. The bird's nesting there, it's not hurting the tree, it's just using it kind of as a vessel for the moment, and the tree itself is gaining nothing, but the bird is gaining, obviously, a home. And then parasitism, I think the easiest one to think of is either a tick or a tapeworm feeding off of human blood, and in the tapeworm's case, off of the human digestive system. So just know one example. If you don't like these, go ahead and take a look. There's definitely way more in nature that goes on. There's the plover and the crocodile for mutualism. Do something that interests you. So if you did have to explain it, you can go into more detail. Competition and resource partitioning. I think competition is pretty straightforward. Resource partitioning is when they're coexisting in the same niche. So a lot of times you'll see the birds like in a tree. They just, one stays in the top, one stays in the bottom, and they just coexist even though they have the same resource, maybe being shelter in the tree. So just partitioning resources, sharing them in a way. Compare interspecific and intraspecific. It's really just knowing your prefixes. So inter, between two different species in the same area, maybe, I don't know, squirrel, deer. Maybe they're competing for space, something like that. It's just two different species. Intra would be the same species in the same area. So instead of a squirrel and a deer, maybe the squirrels are competing against each other for food. Biodiversity. If you don't know about it by now, major problem. The number of species within an area. Biome is obviously like a certain area of Earth where you have a similar climate, flora, fauna, animals, plants, things like that. The thing I need you guys going in with is knowledge of where some major landmarks are. So if you're looking at this map and you're like, whoa, I don't know what any of these things are, it's a problem. You need to know South America. Where is South America? That pertains a lot to El Nino and the tides shifting. You should know the United States of America and California and where we're located. You should know this over here would be that mid-Atlantic ridge in the divergent boundary under the Atlantic. You should know Africa Okay. Ethiopia obviously is not one that like pops out a lot, but you know that Ethiopia is in Africa. So if you did have a question, obviously this is Africa. You can kind of make an educated guess. And then over here you have Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia area, India, okay, and then China over here. The black dot is Bangladesh. Again, not one that they really are like, where's Bangladesh? But just know the general area, because if they do ask you, you should at least be able to pinpoint what continent it should be found in. So that's just something you guys should keep in mind. Now, the terrestrial biomes, they do ask I've seen a lot of questions asked in general on biomes. I don't know this year because obviously there's only 2 questions. I would say like no, if you were told like temperate deciduous forest and you close your eyes, you should be able to picture what that is like. So I would say the best way to do biome reviews, I would stick on Netflix and I would go to Our Planet or Night on Earth or Planet Earth, and I would just watch it. I watched Night on Earth the other day and they were doing all savanna and there was a little desert in there, and it's really cool to see all of the different animals that live there. And that way if they ask you, it's not something you're like thinking about from a textbook. You're like, oh wait, like the golden mole lived in the desert and it hunted scorpions. So it's like one of those things where you can kind of try to bring it back to something you've seen. So that's definitely something you should look at. Let's see. What else do we got? Ocean biomes. Okay, so again, just knowing the key things about them. Coral reefs, very productive. Open ocean. Okay, they normally talk about the emptiness of it. However, there's so much phytoplankton that it actually does have a high gross primary productivity. Okay, let's see. What is this? Oh, the biogeochemical cycles. I have a web quest that I gave to my living environment kids that I just found on these. If you really struggle with this and you would like that web quest, I will totally send it to you. I'm not going to post it to the class. So if you're watching this, you're doing the extra work, and you want that web quest, please hit me up on Remind and I will send that to you on an individual basis. All right. So biotic, abiotic, not really much to explain there. Living, non-living. The biggest thing about the rule of 10 with the food chain, and I think that this is the one that they always try to get you on. It's important to note that you're starting with a primary producer that gains whatever energy you can get from the sun. So that converts that solar energy into chemical energy at, let's say what it says here, 1,000,000 kilocalories. Now, when the rabbit eats the grass, it's not going to get all of the energy because the grass has now used that energy and a lot of it's going off into the environment as heat. So when the grass needs to grow, it needs to reproduce, it needs to, I don't know, move sugar and water around. It's using energy. So when the rabbit eats that, it's only getting 10%. And that means that the rabbit's only going to get 100,000 kilocalories from eating the grass. And then by the time the fox eats the rabbit, it's only going to get 10,000 kilocalories because it's, again, another 10%. So as you move up the food chain, energy tends to get lost as heat. And I think that's a really, really big thing to do. Ooh, I didn't answer this one. Oh, let me do that. Energy gets used up and lost to the environment as heat. Okay, cool. So that's what's going on there. The first and the second law, memorize it, know it. Again, they don't have much to choose from. So if they have made notes of stuff, just keep that in mind. So the first one, Mako, is that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can be transferred. Okay, so again, it can't be recycled. It's not decomposers recycling energy, they recycle nutrients, and energy can't be created and it can't be destroyed. So it's just constantly flowing through the environment. The second law is as it does move through the food chain, it starts to its entropy basically increases. So the quantity is the same, but the ability to do that work decreases because a lot of it's lost as heat. So just make sure I would go through and just, if you're not getting that, just watch maybe like the Khan Academy video on the first and the second thermodynamic laws. A lot of it's going to be related to physics, unfortunately, but some videos might relate it back to the environment. So we have gross and net. So remember, gross is the total, and net is the total minus the energy produced, minus the energy that producers respire. So you have to take gross would be like your paycheck before taxes, and net would be after taxes are gone. What do you have left? Not much. So what biomes have a high net primary? Something with a lot of moisture, a lot of warmth, and a lot of plants. So we have rainforests and swamps, really high, and that's for land. Really low, you have desert and open ocean. The volume of the open ocean compared to the amount of phytoplankton is a really massive ratio. So you have to take that in consideration. Deserts have very little precipitation, and therefore they just don't have a lot of producers. Just the cacti and the little shrubbery. You're not seeing as much growth as the rainforest there. If you have to do the math, it's really just the equation of the gross primary productivity minus the respiration, and that gives you the net. So if you have to convert, obviously you can go through the problems here, but that is pretty step by step for you. Let's see. Now, the FRQs, I know a lot of you for these have been just going through and taking the answers and just putting them on yours. I mean, I don't know why you guys are still doing that. It's way better to try it yourself. It's like you're just keeping the training wheels on until the big show, and then you're going to go out with a two-wheeler and not know how to ride it. So please, please, please practice, practice, practice FRQs without the answer key. Anyone can read an answer key and put an answer. Not a lot of people can read a question and answer it in their own words. So for people who are just copying, I'm not taking points off because the answer is not wrong because you're getting it from the answer key, but it's something where it's not helping you, and it's frustrating to be so far away where I can't help you out, on that daily basis that I used to. So that's unit 1. Honestly, it's really not that much in unit 1. I would say the things you should focus on, if I were in your shoes, I would definitely take a look at the biogeochemical cycles and know nitrogen in depth, just because that's one of the harder ones. I would go through, and these learning targets over here, I would go through and make sure that you can answer all of those. Maybe even set them up in a notebook and just go through and make sure you can answer that. If you can't answer it, that's a weak point, and then you just learn it before the 18th. These videos, I only gave you some of them for homework through that unit 1 week. Go through. There's so many of them. The AP board released a ton of them for us. There's entire things of vocab. So please use this to your advantage. I don't do it for my own good. But I do think this is a really short, comprehensive guide to what Unit 1's all about. Again, guys, if you have any questions, if you want that web quest that I was talking about, any other resources, or reach out to me. I'm having trouble with this topic. Is there anything you can suggest? I am here. I am bored, and I am waiting for you guys to reach out. So I hope you have a good day. Keep in touch and keep studying. Bye, guys.